Solidus Obscura. How are you?
Hey, how you doing? I warned you.
Yeah. Are you Italian?
Well, yeah, part in ancestry, but no, I'm mostly American.
You're Italian online.
So,
So, where are you from? Actually,
New York.
New York? All right, well, that fits.
Yeah, definitely not New Jersey.
You're definitely from New York, I can tell.
Yes. Oh,
Uh,
thank you. I appreciate that.
what brought you to Eve Online? Like, what did you play before, and when did you find out about Eve?
So before Eve, I mean, I got into MMOs through World of Warcraft, so I played that quite a bit for a few years. I've always seen, ads for Eve, uh, primarily the kind of Wild West gameplay that you can pretty much do anything, scam, suicide gank, pretty much like almost no rules. And I've always kind of been afraid to play it because I figured I would, you know, dive in a little bit too deep. Well, now I got over 100 characters, so I think I'm pretty much
You have
six
over
feet
a
under now.
hundred characters.
Yeah, I'm a little bit crazy, but yeah, I am the multi-boxing candidate for this one.
Oh, cool. We'll get into that in a few minutes. But a hundred characters, my God. I want to talk about that too. But you started about what year?
So I started in 2015. I think the middle of 2015 with Eve University. Uh, Pretty much came in, learned the ropes, did exploration, mining, missions, PvP. Remember my first fleet PvP experience was in a Griffin, and I died to gate guns.
Oh, you must have shot someone near the low sec gate guns.
Yeah, no, I jammed some Ishtars out and got some good kill mails, but I forgot to warp off, so that ended that little ship pretty quickly.
So that was 2015. That's relatively recent.
Yep, I am a fairly new player. I guess relative to the other CSM candidates. So I've been playing about 2 years, but I will say if you sum up the SP of all my characters, I have about 38 years of experience.
So I imagine that you're one of these guys that was good at MMOs or video games in general and saw Eve as a challenge and came in kind of already equipped to deal with the learning curve and what it was going to take to be successful.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I looked at the depth. I mean, initially I didn't really know too much about it even until I got into it and really started playing, and then I get through the career missions and just seeing how deep the game was. Like you open the market and there's hundreds, thousands of modules, and I'm like, wow, there's like so many different fitting options, so much variety, and so much depth that was really what hooked me on the game. That with WoW you go into it and you clear the different raids and you pretty much achieve the level of completion. And with Eve, it's like impossible to be a completionist. It's a very long, deep journey if you're trying to do that.
Completionist. That's a new word. What?
I mean, that tends to be how I kind of approach video games. With WoW, my main objective was to get all the achievements, which I never ended up doing, but I got pretty far up there.
So that's how you approach it, is you want to be thorough and finish things. Most people like
Absolutely.
that are PVE people, I would imagine, because they're collecting all the trophies. They're collecting all the things that don't move.
Yep. Probably have a lot of clutter from my Skyrim saves.
So you have been heavy on PVE and going around doing missions and that sort of thing.
It's actually more of a mix. So the main thing I try and do in Eve is PvP actually, but I do mix in a lot of PvE, and that's where I do a lot of my multi-boxing on. Although I am trying to do new things with at least 10 or more characters when it comes to PvP. It's pretty tricky, but you get some good shakes when you're dropping 10 of something on someone.
Uh, yeah. Well, let's talk about that. I mean, IS Boxer was a program that was allowed multi-boxing, which you can have multiple accounts play at the same time, and a lot of Eve players do that in order to magnify their uh, power, I suppose, because if you have two things doing it, you're doing it twice as well. If you have three, you're doing it three times as well. And so some people magnify their strength because this game scales very well that way. as opposed to WoW, where it doesn't really help that much because you kind of have to concentrate on what your character's doing, or Elite Dangerous, where you're flying the actual ship, so you have to kind of pay attention to that. Eve doesn't work that way.
I disagree with you, actually.
Oh, go ahead, explain that.
So with WoW, you can actually use this box's broadcasting functionality. At least back when I played. So I quit WoW about maybe half a year ago. But back then, you can actually broadcast. So you would have 40, 50 people with 40, 50 accounts. I didn't have nearly that many. Actually doing the same exact character and broadcasting their action, so they can move the characters in one direction, target something, and just nuke it. With Eve, you're not allowed to broadcast. So they blocked that out a few years ago before I started playing, I think. So you actually have to. It scales well. It's easy to multi-box Eve, but the more characters you do, you're going to lose efficiency. So if you're trying to, shoot something, you're going to basically lose ticks as you cycle through all of the characters. So it's actually a little bit trickier when it comes to Eve, but it's a little cheaper to multi-box. WoW is extremely expensive when you're going up to 40, 50 characters.
Oh, I'll ask you to explain that in a second. And what I meant was that people can play multiple accounts, so software was created to make that process easier, and that's IS Boxer was one of those applications. So you could cut pieces of the screen out and consolidate all these accounts, 10 accounts that you were playing at the same time, into one screen. And it was easier for you to kind of do things like put spies and systems coming to the system where you were mining in, so you could tell when people were coming at you, or running them all at the same time to destroy things, which is what you were saying. Broadcasting means picking a target and everybody shooting the same target at the same time. But CCP did something and outlawed that kind of behavior, which is what you just said, and that's made it more tricky to use multi-boxing in Eve.
Yes, exactly.
And that's what the controversy was, because it was getting to the point where bombers, it was okay when people were just using it to do incursions. Nobody really complained much. It was a way of making money. But when it started being used in PvP, bombers would, 5 or 6 bombers from one person would all target and aim and shoot the same person in the same precise manner and destroy fleets at a time, and that's when people started complaining. And so that was why that was a controversy about it a year to 2 years ago. But you're a proponent for it, because why do you think it's okay for that kind of behavior in the game?
I'm not necessarily advocating for bringing back broadcasting, but I am advocating for if you're either paying, plexing the accounts, there shouldn't necessarily be a restriction on you from running them under the current EULA. The only problem is CCP looks at their logs and tries to detect when you're actually tries to detect anomalous activity that you're potentially broadcasting, or that you're intentionally using multiple screens. So what if you get so good at multi-boxing that you can push out 5 to 6 salvos or 5 to 6 actions per tick as you cycle through your characters? It becomes it becomes kind of nebulous with how that is treated, and that's kind of what I want to get at, and primarily with as being CSM, to try and get them to understand. Trying to get them to understand where we're coming from multi-boxing perspective, and how we play the game, which I don't think they understand how we play the game necessarily.
And so that would be one of the reasons you're running for CSM, is to be somebody that could help them understand that.
Precisely.
So you've heard the arguments. First of all, you have how many accounts again?
35 total.
35 total, with 3 characters on each, I guess. That puts you nearly 100.
Max them out.
What do you do? What do you do with all those guys?
So initially, why don't I just give the background? So back when I was in Eve University, and eventually I moved to Mercenary Coalition, I had about 5 accounts. Different. Each character had a different role. I had a few minors. I had a capital character, obviously a sub-cap character, which is my main Solidus, a few Sinos and whatnot, Suicide Gang Cult. And then I saw a post on Reddit, like just a simple line saying, "Oh, I make 1.2 billion ISK an hour doing multi-boxing Vanguard incursions." And I'm like, "What? 1.2 billion an hour?" And I'm like, I poked the person. I asked them how they did it, and basically it's kind of an interesting strategy. Use 8 Dominixes, 1 Nestor, 1 command one command ship, and basically you just go in, slide the gate, and a certain strategy, and you just change sites, and you can make quite a lot of ISK. And I felt that was kind of an interesting challenge to take myself. Let me know if I'm rambling
Yeah,
on.
no, that's beautiful. That's exactly what I wanted to know. So, and that's interesting because people can see that orchestration as a way of magnifying their ability in the game, but it's also gameplay, right? Because you're having to manage all this stuff at the same time. Much
It's
like, say, a carrier pilot now has to manage all his drones at the same time. It's that same. It comes from the same place of multitasking.
Yeah, it's definitely a high APM activity, and I am by no means the master. There's a dude that can multi-box 8, 9 paladins and get well beyond 1.2 billion ISK an hour, and it's kind of amazing.
So, what are some of the things that people are doing with multi-boxing?
So incursions is one method, one common method. Mining is probably the most common, and I do have a lot of those characters are miners. So I tap out about 25 characters in the mining fleet. Uh, you also have suicide ganking. So you have the things that the Cusians do with dropping 10, 11 bombers on the target. I've actually used the blops, and I've dropped on rattlesnakes in Providence, pushed 10 bombers through, and just hazed a few snakes. It's basically whatever you can think of, can you scale? I've also done planetary interaction with several characters. I gave that up pretty quickly because I was managing 165 planets, and it got kind of old within a month. I mean, I made a lot of ISK, but it's just too much time per day.
Yeah, that's a
So
lot
whatever
of
you
clicking.
so whatever you think of, and if it's a simple enough activity that you can replicate across multiple accounts, people will do it. So that's why Oracle mining now multiple accounts is something people do, because it's not really that difficult to set up. It's just a lot of investment when it comes to buying the ships and the skills.
Yeah, the skills, right? Because you have to get your character up there.
Yeah, that's so. A lot of there are stories about people that have hundreds of accounts, and there's this one dude that Cloaky camped an entire region. I can like Cloaky camp about constellation or two, but
Is that the guy that would hold the region hostage?
yes, and he was the same dude that lost the what was it, the luxury yacht with over 2,200 skill injectors.
Do you know
Some
about
crazy
that? Do you want to
amount.
tell us that little story, or is there not much to tell?
Uh, it's purely only hearsay, but I understand he basically, or she didn't understand the mechanics that you can activate skill injectors and extractors remotely. So he pretty much got screwed.
But what was
But
his deal? Like, how did he make money?
So every character you have, if you are happy with the skills that you have, if you're over 5 million skill points, you can just plex it and extract the skills that you're getting on top of that. So essentially, the account pays for itself and a little bit extra. So you make some money on the injector extractor spread, and that will cover the plex as well. Getting a little tricky with the latest. There's a kind of a loophole with alpha accounts, but it's still somewhat profitable. My approach though is not only doing that, but also doing a little bit more. So every 10 or so characters, I try and have them do something unique. Either it's sinos, bombing, incursions, mining, that sort of thing.
So it sounds like you're very much an optimizer, and you have so many different things that you do. You've pretty much explored the game pretty well.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm most of the multi-boxing I've done is PvE, but I've had a lot of experience with PvP. I was very lucky and honored to be as part of MC's Alliance tournament team last year, and we did pretty well. We got up to a top 16 spot,
Were
and
you the whole team? With
no way. Although I do have some ideas for multi-boxing, I'm not going to
in
share those.
in tournament play?
Well, we do have a lock for this year, so it won't be this year. So
Oh, how was that, by the way? The tournament.
I'm sorry you cut off.
How was the tournament for you? What's it like being on a tournament team, especially from a team like Mercenary Coalition, which are pretty good players overall?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it was I think Eldon Rin was our team captain. It was, I think, his first time captaining such a team, and he took us pretty far. It's a lot of practice. So you're spending 20, 30 hours a week, sparring internally, sparring with other teams. I understand PL probably does that kind of thing 40 to 50 hours. So it's a lot of effort and a lot of practice, several weeks before the actual tournament starts. And then once the tournament starts, there's no other, I can't describe the shakes that you get, because it's not like coming in and losing a 2, 3 billion ship or even a super. I mean, you're doing pretty much the premier competition within this game.
That's as high as the pressure gets in combat.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because it's in front of thousands of people, and it's all good competition pretty much. Well, I guess there's some duds in there, but what do you do when you practice something like that? What's going on there? Are you practicing plays?
No, so what you do is you pretty much you're doing a lot of testing of comps, trying to see which one does well under which circumstances, as well as practicing your piloting.
Yeah.
Some teams will spar with other teams. You have the test open practices that tend to happen about 2, 3 months before the tournament. So you basically try and face as many different teams as you can without kind of spilling your secret comps.
Mm-hmm.
And you try and test out your comps internally that you plan to use in the actual competition.
So it's really more of seeing if your theory crafting actually works.
It's a big measure of that. Yes.
Yeah. Well, that's pretty cool. I mean, what I'm getting from you, though, is that you're somebody that's pretty serious about figuring things out.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I've tried to expose myself to many parts of this game, not just limiting myself to one bucket.
Yeah.
Although I would say I excel at the multi-boxing aspect, but I try, involve myself in the other pieces as well.
Yeah. Can you understand what some of the arguments against multi-boxing are? Are any of them valid to you?
I get the frustration. If you're flying, a freighter or an expensive ship, and you have someone come in, a single person, with assets less than, substantially less than the value of your ship, and you end up getting blown up, or basically you're a player in the game and you're seeing this dude come into your ice belt and pretty much eat the entire ice belt in a half hour. You don't have any time to actually mine it. I can see the frustrations by it. But to say it's unfair, I don't think is valid, because each account is being, it's not, these aren't alpha accounts. These are either being paid for or they're being plexed.
So should it matter if it's 10 guys that actually come in and do it or one guy?
There's no difference. I mean, you have a much better chance against the single person coming in with 10, because they're trying to coordinate all of it. I mean, it's Eve. You can come into a low sec system with your blingy, pirate figure, and you're coming into a gate camp with 40 dudes, and you're going to get hazed. It's just the way Eve is.
Yeah. So, and the other counterpoint, I guess, is that if one person can actually use 10 accounts to execute very well, but if they don't, they lose 10 accounts too. Like, they get blown up 10 times over.
I have brought 9 rattlesnakes to a fleet once, and it was pretty scary, because you lose all that, you're losing a bit more than a dreadnought worth of ISK. So
yeah, you ever had any bad accidents IS boxing?
So I have. Well, I actually don't use Iceboxer. Initially, I used Evo Preview,
yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then now I just have a hotkey.
You used
what?
Sorry,
go ahead.
No, I messed you up. You used what?
So initially, I used Evo Preview, which is a tool which basically puts previews of each window across the screen, and you can click it and it automatically switches to the window. Now I just use a hotkey which kind of tabs through windows. So what I do is I try and line up all the windows, like below windows and even the same position. So when I tab through, I can keep the mouse steady and click each action. So it's a little bit more efficient than back and forth with Evo.
Yeah, with Evo, is that something built by CCP, or is it sanctioned by CCP or something?
There is that program actually is sanctioned. Well, not. I mean, they don't sanction any tool. I shouldn't say that, but they basically say this doesn't break the rules. You're allowed to use it. And there's a post, I think about a year ago on the E forums that validates that. Basically, as long as you're not, slicing and dicing the windows, chopping them up, and you're not using automation and you're not using broadcasting, it's tolerated. I mean, that's the exact language they use. It's basically the level of tolerance that they have. But again, if they see you putting in 10 actions across 10 characters in one server tick, I mean, you have to be pretty damn good to be able to do that, and that would actually get you flagged. So
yeah, I've seen people do nearly that though, and they claim that they can just move that fast. You believe that?
They, I mean, I can see it happen. The reason I can't get that many actions out is there's just too much lag between when I shift the windows. So it takes uh, a good fraction of a second to go through each window to execute the command. And there's also lag from, the router. I mean, if you're running 10, 20 accounts, you're using a lot of bandwidth too. So
Yeah. So it's not a matter of having a souped up computer. There's a lot of other factors.
if you had a good computer, it actually would help. My computer is, mid range, so it does well enough.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't probably go beyond 20. 20 is about, well, 20 minors is about as high as I go, and I don't think I can maintain more than that on a single computer. I actually have a lot of problems once I go up to 30. So
Go up to 30. It just sounds so. I can barely handle two. I get
I just
confused.
love pushing it. I just love pushing it, man.
Yeah. Well, that's pretty cool. So, is that the reason you're running for CSM again, or is there more to it than just that?
So I'll come down to the
Yeah.
heartfelt point is I've got a lot of time now invested in this game, a lot of capital, a lot of investment, and I've come to really care about the game. My fondest experiences really was that Alliance tournament, but also in Vegas. MC had a really huge showing. I made,
Mm.
all the friends I had online, I now made them in real life, and a lot of good guys. And it's really transformed this game to something that's something a little bit more than just a game to me. It's now a community, and it's something I want to see thrive and do well for a long period of time. And I want to advocate, do a little bit more for the player base in being the CSM. So I say, so my platform is multi-boxing because that's where my expertise is. But
Mhm.
again, my plan would be to listen to everyone, not just necessarily the multi-boxer.
Oh, were you in that party suite in Las Vegas?
Yes, I was.
I was in there too. I brought up Matani, and I think Lady Scarlet was there, and actually, um, I'm blanking, but
No, I think I do remember seeing you now. I mean, I obviously didn't introduce myself. It got pretty crowded in there that one night, and I'm like, it's a little bit too much, so I stepped away. But no, I was definitely there quite a few of them, most of the nights. So
yeah, it was a big party. I forget the guy's name. Anyway, that's totally off topic, but who's the super trusted guy everybody talks about all the time? Third
super
party.
trust.
Anyway, I'm going to get crucified. Thank you, Cribba.
Riba? Okay.
I kept wanting to call him Agrippa, like the Roman, the Roman sailor. But yeah, Cribba was there. Anyway, all that was funny, so it's neat to know that you were there. And yeah, what a great bond you guys have at MC. I don't think that there's anything like it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I've been part of guilds and WoW, and the camaraderie doesn't come close to that. So
Yeah, and you guys are mostly adults and mature and all that stuff, right?
we're not mature. We're far from mature.
Oh, really?
You've got C bias too. Come on, this is our flag. Come on.
Well, that's true. You guys were wearing Viking helmets that lit up like Christmas lights. But
Yeah, we went to the medieval times. Well, it's not medieval times, but it's pretty much that on one of the nights. So yeah, we were in our Hungary chants because we were on the Hungary side.
yeah. So the game has become more than a game. It's like a fellowship, and you've got a lot of investment in it, and you are, knowledgeable in multi-boxing and many facets of the game. But the multi-boxing thing, to be clear, you come down. Do you come down on one side or the other about it? You think it's okay, it's manageable. CCP just needs to learn how to manage it better.
Yes, I think it does come to be a manageability problem. I think they've put rules in that are fair enough because it blocks the broadcasting. Because broadcasting, then if you can run 50, then it becomes just way too much. But the current way it's working, I think it's in a good place. But I think CCP needs to understand when they put out a change, with the Rookle changes, they should have known people are going to multi-box 20 to 30 of them and not have much of a problem doing that.
Yeah. Is that actually what's happening out there?
Yeah, yeah. Although I'm pretty sure the folks that invested all that income in Rorkles and the skills are feeling pretty miffed right now because
Yeah.
of all the nerfs that are coming down. So
Yeah, there's definitely some backlash. How do you feel about that change?
So I'm a little mixed. So initially, we miners, at least MC does have some miners.
Mhm.
We like to nickname it Mining Coalition. We were pretty afraid of what was coming down. There is an alliance called that now. We were pretty afraid of what the Oracle changes were going to be because they were going to put them on grid, and you got a siege for 5 minutes, and you're highly vulnerable out in the belts. So we were wondering what they would do, and they came out with the Mining Foreman Revolution dev blog, and it looked incredible. I mean, we were starting to do memes. I became the mining pope, and I started a little bit of religion called the Church of the Oracle, which is a corporation now. Uh, and we were pretty thrilled about it. But now, and then one of the big changes was obviously they can use excavators and mine about the same income as 5 to 6 hulks. Now CCP they nerfed it a few months ago. They're nerfing it again. I think it's a lot of knee-jerk reactions to the problem. I can't sit here and tell you how to fix it because again I'm not a developer, but I think CCP really needs to revisit that and include the entire CSM and looking at what can possibly be done to kind of rectify. Because on one side, having all those oracles being multi-box and out in the belts are impacting mineral economy. There's definitely been a depression in the prices across the board. But on the flip side, the more you nerf it, the more you're hitting people that invested a lot of income. I mean, the excavators alone right now, they're up to 7.8, 7.9 billion for a full set, and now you've nerfed them 25%. It doesn't feel good because now you got to do 25% more work to recoup the investment, and if you lose them, well, maybe you're losing that extra 25% of time that you're trying to recoup the investment. Kind of sucks.
Yeah. So those are the kinds of issues that you would be able to speak to intelligently.
Absolutely. And hopefully the things I posted hopefully that it comes across like that.
Well, cool. Solidus from New York. Is there anything we didn't cover that you would want to talk about? Probably a
No,
lot, but
this was a fun conversation. I'm going to be judged pretty fun from my court mates. So
yeah.
I'm in for a bit of hazing coming up, but at
Yeah.
least you agree I'm from New York and not from New Jersey. I think that's a
Yeah.
kind of win already.
Yep. And your Church of Oracle, yeah, will probably haze you pretty good. But it was a pleasure talking with you, and I feel like we just got started, but the half hour came and went quick.
Yeah, it did. No, this is my first podcast, so thank you for all the stuff you're doing for the CSM candidates, especially the ones that are kind of unknown. So I really appreciate the exposure you're giving to us.
My pleasure. I'm actually meeting a lot of really interesting people, and it's actually much more fun than I thought it was going to be. You guys are all actually very interesting people, very capable people, and it's been hard to really find any weakness in any of the candidates, but it'll be interesting. So good luck on your run.
Thank you very much, sir.